Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that's been on everyone's minds lately: tipping. In the US, tipping has become a cultural norm that's expected in almost every service industry, from restaurants to hair salons. But with the pressure to tip more and more, many Americans are finding themselves struggling to keep up with the ever-increasing costs. In this video, we'll explore why the tipping culture has gotten out of control in the US and what you can do about it. First, let's talk about why tipping has become so prevalent in the US. It all started during the Great Depression when restaurants and other service industries started to pay their workers less in order to keep prices low. Tipping was seen as a way for customers to show their appreciation for good service and to help supplement the workers' income. But over time, tipping has become an expected part of the service industry, with workers often earning the majority of their income through tips. Now, let's talk about why the tipping culture has gotten out of control. One reason is that the minimum wage for tipped workers in the US is much lower than the regular minimum wage. This means that employers are allowed to pay their tipped workers as little as $2.13 per hour, with the expectation that tips will make up the difference. This puts the burden on customers to pay the workers a fair wage, which can lead to pressure to tip more and more. Another reason why tipping has gotten out of control is that the percentage that's expected has increased over time. In the past, a 10% tip was considered generous, but now it's not uncommon for people to tip 20% or more. This can add up quickly, especially when you consider that tips are expected in a variety of service industries. One factor that has contributed to the out-of-control nature of tipping is the rise of the gig economy. With the rise of app-based services like Uber, Lyft, and food delivery apps, more workers are classified as independent contractors rather than employees. This means that they are not entitled to the same benefits and protections as traditional employees, including a guaranteed minimum wage. As a result, these workers often rely heavily on tips to make ends meet. Another issue with the tipping culture in the US is that it can be discriminatory. Studies have shown that tipping is often influenced by factors like the server's race, gender, and physical attractiveness, rather than the quality of service provided. This means that servers who belong to marginalized groups may be tipped less than their counterparts, even if they provide excellent service. There are also some efforts underway to address the issue of tipping in the US. For example, some restaurants are experimenting with a no-tipping model, where prices are increased to include a service charge that is then distributed among all employees. This can help to create a more equitable system and ensure that all workers are paid a fair wage. In terms of what consumers can do, it's important to remember that tipping should be based on the quality of service provided, rather than a percentage of the total bill. If you receive exceptional service, it's appropriate to tip more, but if the service is poor, it's okay to tip less or not at all. It's also worth considering whether you want to support businesses that pay their employees a fair wage or those that rely heavily on tips. In summary, the tipping culture in the US has become out of control due to a variety of factors, including a low minimum wage for tipped workers, the rise of the gig economy, and issues with discrimination. However, there are efforts underway to address the issue, and consumers can play a role by being mindful of their tipping habits and supporting businesses that are working towards a fairer system. So what can you do about it? One solution is to advocate for a higher minimum wage for tipped workers. Some states have already taken action to raise the minimum wage, but there's still a long way to go. Another solution is to be mindful of your tipping habits and to tip based on the quality of service you receive, rather than feeling pressured to meet a certain percentage. And finally, you can also support businesses that are moving away from the tipping culture and instead paying their workers a fair wage. In conclusion, tipping has become a cultural norm in the US that's gotten out of control. But with awareness and action, we can work towards a fairer and more equitable system. One important step is to educate ourselves and others on the issue. Many people may not be aware of the low minimum wage for tipped workers or the discriminatory nature of tipping. By spreading awareness and having conversations about the issue, we can help to create a larger movement for change. Another important step is to support policy changes that would raise the minimum wage for tipped workers. This could include advocating for state or federal legislation that would guarantee a fair wage for all workers, regardless of whether they receive tips or not. Supporting organizations that advocate for workers' rights and fair labor practices is another way to make a difference. Finally, as consumers, we can make conscious choices about where we spend our money. We can choose to support businesses that pay their employees a fair wage or those that have moved away from the tipping culture. We can also be mindful of our tipping habits and aim to tip based on the quality of service provided rather than feeling pressure to meet a certain percentage. In summary, by educating ourselves, supporting policy changes, and making conscious choices as consumers, we can work towards a fairer and more equitable system for service workers in the US. It won't be an overnight fix, but by taking action, we can help to create a more just society for all. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.